The meeting of the Nottaway County Board of Supervisors is now called to order. Mr. Bowen, will you give us the invocation, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's go to the Father. Lord, again, we come together on this hot and humid Virginia day that I just love this state and love this county, and we're so blessed to be a part of it, and we thank you for that. And Lord, we ask you now to be with us. Father, we all have made many mistakes, and we know that we got to own up to them, and we just ask you to open our hearts and minds and just be willing to make those corrections and be more prepared in the future. And we thank you for people like Lee who's come here to help us learn from these mistakes and give him the wisdom and courage to teach us. And through Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have with us tonight Mr. Lee Williams, who is a native of Nottaway County, and he's going to present the after-action report to us. Mr. Williams, you have been very helpful to us in Nottaway County, and thank you very much for being there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Start with, you did not forget to pay the light bill. I lowered the lights on purpose so that hopefully we will be able to see it. Presentation, I'll go through the presentation, and anybody in the audience that would like to have a copy that does not have a copy will get it through. Anyone that needs a copy that does not have it. All right, start off with, thank you very much for allowing me to come tonight. I think you had originally scheduled me for last week, and I was not able to attend then. I was on vacation. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Mr. Vaughn, Chairman of the Board, Mr. Board, Ms. Simmons, Ms. Shackleton, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Ansvino for allowing me to come in here, present to you what my findings were as far as the after-action report following the ice storm that everybody is familiar with from February of 2021. So to start off with, hopefully you'll be able to see it, purpose and scope, evaluate the actions that are taken, compare with an expected standard, a nationwide standard, make recommendations for the future, and to not be a public forum trying to assign blame. I'm not going to go over everything as far as an overview is concerned, because I know everyone in here is intimately familiar with the particular sequence of events. But basically, Thursday, February the 11th, the governor issued a state of emergency for the state of Virginia. Saturday the 13th, the storm hit Nottaway County. And Nottaway County was one of the worst impacted counties in the state of Virginia. Impassable roads, 90% without electricity, as you know. Mr. Vaughn made a call to open the Emergency Operations Center. It was 5 days. You were still at 50% with no electricity. And then a second storm struck with sub-freezing temperatures. Initial actions that were taken on Saturday, the EOC was opened and a county declaration of emergency was done. Sunday, 3 warming stations opened. Wednesday, we converted crew primary into a shelter. And Wednesday, we began daily incident action plans. An incident action plan is a plan that is done when an incident management team comes in to assist a locality so that you're moving from normal day-to-day operations into crisis operations. It's a written plan so that everyone that's working for the county, whether you're paid, volunteer, churches, whatever, will be familiar with what is needed to be done and what the direction is from the county administration. Friday, we established drive-through food and water points of distribution in the locations. Let's see. Shelter was moved to virtual to allow for COVID cleansing of crew primary. Crew fire started serving hot meals. Landfill hours were extended and fees waived. in order to assist people, the citizens, in getting rid of debris. And generators were brought in to support Burkeville pumping station for sewage as far as maintaining infrastructure and staying out of trouble with DEQ, which none of us want to be involved in. Leader's intent. When you move into crisis operations, that is something that an incident management team does. We prepare an instant action plan so that everyone that's working for the county, whether you're paid, volunteer, or whatever, will have directions as far as what to do, what the county wants done. However, an instant action plan, it's impossible to plan for every single event that may come about during that time frame. So we use what's called leader's intent to establish a couple of broad statements that everybody in the county will have, and have that in front of them, so that if they come upon a situation that's not in the instant action plan, then they will be able to look back at the leader's intent and know what the county wants done, and make a judgment and work on their own without having to go back and get further direction from their superiors. Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Procise and I worked on this and wordsmithed it. Leader's intent should be simple so that everybody can remember it. To service and support the citizens before, during, and after the disaster, and to document all actions and expenses for potential reimbursement through the governor's executive order. The organizational chart from a policy and a strategic standpoint. A little difficult to see, but the citizens are always at the top. Citizens is who the board works for. The Board of Supervisors is next, county administrator under that, and then the Emergency Operations Center is a group of county staff that's selected, and they work in the county EOC and do crisis planning, crisis operations, and instant action plan daily based on events as they change. Down at a tactical level, again, hard to see, but you've got the Emergency Operations Center. We had a safety and a PIO position established, and then planning, logistics, and finance. And I'll go over each of these, but that's what is organized at the county level as far as documentation and trying to make sure that all bases are covered. Boots on the ground, down at the task level, where you're actually working, where you're actually dealing with citizens on a day-to-day basis. Operations is going to be the top block up there. Public safety is over to my left, and under that it's got law enforcement as well as fire and EMS working under Sheriff Jones. The next one is going to be Health and Human Services. Ms. Bernetta, but your middle initial, I know that's important. S.
Bernetta S.
Bernetta S. White, to make sure everybody knew her middle initial. That entire so Bernetta S. White. And then infrastructure. This is something that we didn't start working on until later on, but infrastructure is very important for the county to be working with the towns as well as Southside Electric, internet services, and you've got to get that back in service before the citizens can move back to any type of normal life. So that's why that is in there, and that was added on later after we got some additional staffing in here. Section summaries. Each of the summaries that I'm going to go through are based on the functional positions as identified under NIMS, the National Incident Management System, which is the standard that we want to look at, the standard that we want to compare ourselves with and follow. A couple of things. All disasters start locally and end locally. Localities should be prepared to operate 72 hours on their own prior to any help coming in from the state or FEMA. That help does not come in quick, so you need to be prepared for 72 hours. And this talks about fuel, food, water, anything like that. So all of these should be maintained in inventory on a regular basis. Incident command. Mr. Vaughn was the incident commander for the incident. County emergency was declared. Again, this was 48 to 72 hours following the state declaration of emergency, and I'll discuss that in a few minutes. Initial actions were appropriate, but late because we got started late. They opened up the Emergency Operations Center, called in staff where possible. We did not have a staffing plan in advance, so it was difficult to get some of the workers in. EOC was not in the best of shape. We had an EOC, but I think everybody's had some discussions on that. It does not have a lot of IT capabilities, very few electrical outlets, small. Everybody was in close proximity to each other, and difficulty as far as generator to service that building, and then we're also not able to get to reach back into the county offices to get information that we needed. Public information officer. This is one thing that Ms. Presley was the PIO for the incident, but that's not her normal job, and we do not have a county PIO, as you're aware. So county staff, she had to leave the PIO position to go back and meet payroll and things like that. So that was an issue as far as maintaining adequate contact with social media as well as the website. Other things that we found out during this incident is that a marketing company had control of the website as well as social media. So to start with, we could not post anything on the website without going through the marketing company. It took a while to get through to them, especially on the weekend, and I do not believe that the county had a Facebook account or any social media prior to this incident, correct? That's what I was told when I got here.
That's right.
One was created that day, and we utilized that as much as we could. However, many of the county staff resorted to posting things on their personal social media pages in order to get it out to the county. So they ran into obstacles as far as the marketing company, but they worked to try to overcome them. Nottoway County, I'll go off to the side a little bit right now. Nottoway County has got very good people, very good employees, very dedicated to Nottoway County. The issue was they had not been trained in a lot of the things that they need to be trained in order to adequately address a disaster such as you faced. Safety officer, county has no dedicated safety officer or risk management personnel. Mr. Miskovic, did I pronounce that right? Close enough. Okay. He served as safety officer, but often had split duties between this and the town of Crewe. We need to coordinate safety messages for the public, whether it's dealing with downlines, whether it's working with Southside Electric, whether it's working with VDOT or whatever. So it takes somebody full-time as a safety officer or risk manager during a period of disaster, whereas you may not need one full-time during normal operations. But we should have one during these situations. Another area that came to light was evaluating the food service. We had food service, we had hot meals served by fire departments, churches, so forth. Safety officers through NIMS and an incident management team are taught what to monitor as far as public feeding, temperatures, what's supposed to be cold, what's supposed to be hot, the temperature ranges that are acceptable, and they're trained to go out and spot check that, as well as make sure that everybody that's serving food has got the appropriate PPE, utensils, cleansing facilities. Liaison officer, this was not filled. We did not have a trained person. We got some incident management team people in from Southwest Virginia. This incident occurred similar to the way many incidents occur throughout the state when we've got 4 regional incident management teams across the state. And that's what my job is with Virginia Department of Emergency Management, is coordinating them. Typically, they are held in check by their localities, the same as Nottoway would do, until the disaster has passed their particular jurisdiction, such as Southwest is based out of Roanoke, Central Virginia out of Chesterfield, Hampton Roads out of Chesapeake, and National Capital Region out of Fairfax County. The people that staff these incident management teams are full-time employees for those counties and the surrounding areas. So those county administrators in those counties are not going to cut them loose to go help somebody else until after they're sure they're not needed at home, because they have to protect themselves first. And that's normal. That would be the same as Nottoway would do. But at any rate, we did not have personnel for that. When the storm passed Southwest Virginia and was coming from west to east, and they did not have a big problem, they released people. So that was when we were able to call them in and beef up the EOC down here in Nottoway County, and we also shared people with Charlotte County as well. So that's where the incident management team personnel came from. A liaison officer acts similar to a military executive officer. He works for the incident commander, does a lot of tasks for the incident commander, runs down loose ends. The other thing that he does, which is very important in a situation like this, is to stay in contact with all of the utilities, whether it's Southside Electric, whether it's Dominion Power, whether it's the town of Blackstone utilities, and also the internet, Shintel, and the other one in the county is CenturyLink. CenturyLink and Shintel. Real often people think about electricity as being the main thing that needs to be up and running before people can get back to a normal life. Electricity is, but internet is right there with it, because many businesses cannot operate without internet, point of sale, delivery, things like that. So you've got to work hand in hand with the utilities as well as the internet providers to get this back in service, and real often they have to be working together in the same locations because the damage is going to be in the same locations. VDOT, Curtis Shepard,
Yes, sir.
Curtis did an excellent job there, but typically we would need to have somebody that would stay in constant contact with VDOT, or either have them to put a representative in the EOC that would maintain contact. Southside Electric is a huge component as they are electricity in Nottoway County. The ideal thing would have been for them to put somebody in the county EOC. They also had their own emergency operations center and incident command post set up. So if we had a larger staff, it could be that we could put somebody from the county that would be dealing with Southside Electric in a real-time basis. As it was, we were monitoring the outages in Nottoway County, but we were monitoring it via website, and so we were getting the information in the EOC at the same time as the public was getting it. NGOs, you've got churches, you've got fire departments, you've got rescue squads, you've got the 3 towns in the county, and liaison officer could maintain relations with the 3 towns and making sure that everything would be going smooth, make sure that there was no gaps, nothing fell between the cracks. Operations section was filled by Acting County Administrator John Prosise. First priority, as it should have been, was the warming and charging stations, and then the sheltering stations when we could get people into operate them, get them from their homes. It's expanded to 3 branches as additional personnel came in. Human Services with Bernetta S. Watkins, and Public Safety and Infrastructure. Health and Human Services, Renetta S. Watkins was the branch director. I think this was your first time in that position. She did an excellent job, but it was learning as you go, correct?
She really did.
Responsible for setting up the warming and charging stations, the shelters, points of distribution, the packaged meals, hot meals, water. They distributed when I left Nottaway County and everything was turned back over to the county, they distributed 792 cases of water, 2,000 hot meals, and 4,000 packaged meals. Maximum number of people in the warming and charging stations was 49. Maximum people in the shelter was 4. This was not cost beneficial to continue on with the shelters. It's a lot that goes into opening up a shelter that a lot of people do not realize. It's not just opening up the doors and telling everybody to come. You have to have provisions for them. You've got to have EMS. You've got to have law enforcement. So it takes a number of people to coordinate, as well as staffing them from social services. So at some point in time, it's going to be better. You're going to be better off from the economic standpoint to revert back to hotels and pay for that through the county. No advanced staffing plan was developed. Typically, in any locality, when you've got everyone trained in the National Incident Management System, you're going to have people that know how to operate. For example, when you've got a storm coming in, whatever type it is, you've got certain things that are done like 96 hours in advance of when the storm is supposed to hit, 72 hours, 48 hours. People that work for the county or the towns would change from their normal duties and begin storm prep. The other thing that they do is have a staffing plan, because you know what positions are going to be required, and those positions that are going to be required are going to need to be housed somewhere so that they can get into work when it's needed. And this would go for county staff as well as fire and EMS. Staffing plan we just talked about. Shelter drills, we had not had any of those in Nottaway County, and no pet shelters. When people first started talking about pet shelters, I was under the impression that that's kind of fluff and not really needed, but that's totally incorrect. And I've learned since then that a lot of people that need to go to a shelter are not going to go unless they can take their pet. And that's something that has to be addressed, whether it's addressed here in Nottaway County or any other county, any other locality. But pets always need to be considered. Public Safety Branch, Sheriff Jones served as a branch director. It's the first time in his position, I believe. Responsible for Nottaway Sheriff's Office, the 911 Center, the 3 fire departments, 3 police departments, and Nottaway County Emergency Squad. Call loads roughly 40 for a 24-hour period during normal circumstances. On 212, the call load was 177 calls for service for that 24-hour period. And for the total storm period that we were tracking, storm-related calls was 686 calls. So significant increase in call load from what we normally have. I think he normally has one dispatcher on duty at a time, and that would significantly be a significant workload for them. In order to break it up so it was a reasonable span of control, we had 1 fire and EMS group and 3 LEO divisions, 1 for each town. The fire and EMS group was somebody from the Emergency Services Committee. I'm not positive of the exact name. But at any rate, I think since that time, it was brought out in the fire and EMS study that group is not functioning very well. The idea was for them to send somebody with decision-making authority to the EOC to serve in this capacity. What in fact happened was they sent whoever was available which really did not have any decision-making authority, and with the three fire departments and emergency squad all being independent agencies, they were not going to let somebody in the EOC speak for what they could or could not do. So that caused an issue that I probably wasn't expecting.
All right.
That's the best way to put that. 4 volunteer agencies did do an outstanding job. They provided over 900 hours of staffing, which that's a cost savings of over $25,000. That amount is eligible for the county share when you are doing any type of cost share for reimbursement. So that dollar amount is a figure that's based on FEMA, rate per hour, number of volunteers that are marking up and on duty, and that can count towards the county's share for reimbursement. So that's extremely important. Propane generator issue at the 911 center. When I got here, talking with Sheriff Jones, and we had an issue. We were almost out of propane. We could not get propane delivered. We did not have any information as far as the county contract, emergency provisions, what we could do as far as going to another provider to give us propane. And if that generator had run out, Sheriff Jones was going to be in severe shape, not only for law enforcement, for the entire county, fire, EMS, everything. Correct? Yes, sir. So that was a huge obstacle that we had to tackle right off the bat. Generator issues at radio tower sites. I think some of the radio tower sites have got generators and some do not. That's an issue that needs to be addressed so that we can have countywide communication during any type of storm. Sheriff kept in touch with all the agencies. He distributed incident action plans. However, many of the people in fire, EMS, and law enforcement had not worked on an incident action plan in the past. It was distributed to them. A lot of them took it, looked at the cover, and glanced through it and said, I wonder what this means to me, and set it down on a desk. And I'm not sure that everybody understood the purpose of an incident action plan and how they should be using it. And that's something we need to look at as far as training in the future, and we'll address that. The 3 fire departments and the emergency squad are not used to reporting to the county. They operate independently, and it's just not a habit that's going to be easy to correct, but it does need to be corrected. None of them are set up to increase staffing for disaster operations, not sufficient sleeping quarters, showers, anything like that. That should be looked at in the future. Infrastructure branch, we did not deal with this to start with. I feel this branch, due to staffing shortages, again, electricity, internet, roads, water, sewage, this is all what we wanted to make sure was returned to pre-disaster conditions. Liaison officer would have been very helpful in this, and the damage areas in all of these will often overlap, so you need to coordinate between all of the agencies that are coming in to make repairs. The sewage issue that we had in Burkeville, I don't see Brian in here, but Burkeville did not have enough generators for their sewage pumping stations, and they came close to some of the sewage overflowing, and we were able to get a generator brought in from Richmond, and we rented and got that hooked up, so we did not have a spillage and did not have to report anything to DEQ, which is huge. But it took a long time. Blackstone, I think, is in good shape from that standpoint. They had generators for all of theirs. Crew had generators for most of theirs. Burkeville had one generator that they rotated around, but the issue was nobody knew what type of connections they needed up in Crew Berkeley. So it took about 2 days for them to figure out exactly what type of connection they needed on the generator. That's something that will be done early. We've talked about these. Planning section. Planning started prior to Virginia Department of Emergency Management arriving, but the actions were not well documented. Kirby Wolford with the Division of Forestry came in and did an excellent job putting the incident action plans together, getting everybody on the same page, getting everybody working together and understanding in the EOC how the incident action plan should be put together and what its purpose is. Southwest Incident Management Team filled in some other slots to assist him when they arrived, and we began giving daily IEPs on a daily briefing in the Emergency Operations Center. We sent daily situation reports to the state EOC from the county EOC. We did not have as good a attendance at the briefings as I would like to have from everybody that's involved as far as the 3 towns and the county working together and cooperating on issues. Logistics section, Susan Tucker filled this role. Virginia Division of Forestry later filled it and allowed Susan to go back to her normal job and doing some purchasing. We were severely shorthanded due to lack of trained personnel. Landfill crew hopped in and did an awesome job as far as filling in gaps and not knowing how to say no. Anything that they were asked to do, they found a way to make that happen. Hot meal delivery requires a trained food unit leader, which we did not have, that we need to make sure that we're doing that in the future. Finance section, Katie Tomer filled that job and did an outstanding job, but she also had to leave sometimes from the EOC and go back to get bills paid and get payroll done for the county, so she had both jobs that she was trying to do. One person shot, correct? Okay. So severely shorthanded as far as trying to coordinate documentation so that you can turn it in and get reimbursed. Recovery is a long-term process. It starts when the incident occurs, and it continues long after the incident is over, because you've still got to document everything. All right, overall summary for training. Again, Nottoway County has hired great people. They're very dedicated. They've not been trained on crisis management, disaster management, or the National Incident Management System, and they have not been trained in the county EOP or exercised any parts of the Emergency Operations Plan. A couple of examples I've got as far as training that I would recommend. ICS 100 and 200 for all employees, and I'm speaking of county and town. This is an online class, pretty simple to take, self-paced. ICS 300 for all public safety personnel, that's a 3-day class. Emergency management for senior officials, I'd recommend that for the county and the towns. For the governing bodies, that's a 1-day class, gives you the high points, but doesn't get you down into the dirty details that would be needed. EOC, Emergency Operations Center, and ICS, Incident Command Interface. That would be for the county and town staff that are going to be working in an EOC, and that would be a 1-day class. Intermediate EOC operations for probably your key personnel that are going to be working in the EOC on a regular basis. That's a 3-day class. One thing that the PIO basics, senior staff and the PIO staff all need to do that. That's a 3-day class. I say the senior staff as well as the PIO has got to write the message, craft it, but the PIO has to know what the senior staff, all of you, want to be as your message to the public. So it's important for both of you to be familiar with what you want to give them as far as strategic direction for the message and how they're going to wordsmith it and get it out to the actual public. Emergency planning, it's a 2-day class, county and town staff for that, and shelter management, social services staff, I'd recommend that they go into that. From a personnel standpoint, hire a full-time emergency management or emergency services coordinator with a budget. It's got to be a budget, can't be just a one-person shop. Also have some part-time emergency management or emergency services hourly staff so that they can fill in gaps and help as needed. Hire joint county and town POs with a budget. That would take some discussions, but I think that we're probably not large enough to have a dedicated PIO, but it's something that could very easily be done jointly between the county and the towns. That's my suggestion. County, I tried to look at what your employees were based on the size of the county, the demographics of the county, square miles, population, and so forth. And everybody reports it in a different manner, so it's difficult to exactly get a handle on it. But from looking at it, I think that Nottoway County probably is understaffed as far as the number of full-time employees they've got in the county. This provides no surge capacity to operate the Emergency Operations Center and get back into normal business at the same time. We talked about the citizens wanting to get back to normal business, needing electricity, needing internet, needing all that stuff. At the same time, the county's got to get back to normal business. We didn't have enough people to do both at the same time. People were either at the EOC or going back to their office. The problem with going back to the office is not enough generators in the regular offices, so that they didn't always have everything that they needed to do their regular job. Emergency Operations Center needs to be larger, also needs to have a backup facility that would be equivalent. It does not have to have all of the details, but it should be equivalent in size. Larger generator, better county IT capabilities, more phone lines. We didn't have the 2 phone lines. We need additional phone lines. And we need more county facilities with generators so that we have continuity of business. Pre-stock the Emergency Operations Center with supplies. We talked about 72 hours for anything else. We had staff that continually had to go from the EOC back to their office to get copy paper, pencils, things like that. The other issue as far as working in the EOC, I think a lot of people had their personal emails and personal cell phones because they couldn't get access back to the county desktops and county phones that were in the county administration building. Overall after action report, practice. We've not only got to write something down, we've got to practice it. The EOP is supposed to be updated every 4 years. I think the last time it was updated was 2016, so it's time past due for that to be updated. There should be annual county and town joint exercises to practice the emergency operations plan. Individual section exercises can be done in addition to a large joint exercise, such as the planning group working on contingency plans. If this happens, what are we going to do? If Storm C happens, what are we going to do? Public safety, they could have drills where they're working on just their particular part. Same thing with shelters. That would not need to involve the entire county, but just involve the social services and the NGOs that they have working with them. And infrastructure, looking at all of these things in advance so that you know what you need if you have to order, say, a generator, for example. Let's see, overall Summary, I think we need to have more coordination. Coordinate with the towns, between the county and the towns. We need that. None of the towns nor the county has got enough people on the payroll to adequately handle something by themselves. So everybody needs training, everybody needs to work together so that, for example, when a county EOC is opened up, the 3 towns can submit 1 or 2 people or something like that to help staff the county EOC. By the same token, if disaster hits primarily Burkeville, maybe Blackstone can send some people up there, and the same way if disaster hits Blackstone, then people would be able to come down and assist you. But you've got to be trained together in order to work together. Coordinate with other counties to provide surge capacity for each other. This will primarily be among the rural counties that are similar in demographics to what you've got. You've got Nottaway County, you've got Amelia, you've got Charlotte, Dinwiddie, Brunswick, a lot of these, Prince Edward, you've got a lot of these counties. A disaster does not hit every county equally. Charlotte and Nottaway got hit the worst during that ice storm. Doesn't mean the others didn't get hit, but they got hit the worst. So if we had had something like that in advance of this storm, you know, we could possibly get some people to come in and assist from those counties with the understanding that when they have a disaster, we would be able to supply some assistance to them. Coordinate with Virginia Department for Emergency Management. We're in Region 1 for the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. They have probably a 4-person regional staff that's available to come out and help guide, work on the EOPs, make plans, make contingency plans, work through it. But you've got to ask for it. You've got to know what you are asking for. But that help is available. Monitor the state emergency declarations. Whenever the governor makes a declaration, that should be a key for the county to look at it and put something in place, whether you enact it or not, but have it written down, have an emergency declaration for Nottaway County written out so that if the storm does hit Nottaway County or whatever the disaster may be, you've got it already written out. Your board members, your towns are already familiar with it, and you can implement it a lot quicker than waiting until after the disaster actually affects Nottaway County. If the storm passes and does not hit Nottaway County, you don't have to vote on it. You don't have to implement it. You've got it in place for the next time. That's a key point. Anytime the governor makes a declaration, that opens up funding, and you need to be aware of that. The overall networking. Everybody needs to network together. It's a Central Virginia Emergency Management Alliance, which is emergency managers and staff from all of the counties in the same, it's primarily basically the same as VDM Region 1 or Virginia State Police Division 1. Basically the same counties, but they come together and meet once a month and talk about best practices, talk about grants, what's available funding-wise, what's not available. That's something that Nottaway County needs to be involved in. It's going to have a lot of larger jurisdictions in there. It's going to have Chesterfield, it's going to have Richmond, Henrico, a lot of them in there. And you certainly don't need to keep up with them. But what you can do is learn best practices from them and then downscale it for your particular county. The other thing that you can do is to work with counties of similar size. Prince Edward, Amelia, these are all members of the Central Virginia Emergency Management Alliance, but you can form like a subcommittee to meet and talk about, well, they said do plan X, Y, and Z. We don't have enough people for that. So we're going to have to downscale it. And you can work among the counties the smaller counties to come up with an alternative that's good enough for you and your population level, because you're gonna go bankrupt if you try and keep up with Chesterfield and Richmond and all those places. Another thing you can do is observe other counties' exercises. You need to have exercises here. Some of the evaluators that you could get would be some of the emergency managers from other counties to come in and look at what you're doing, make suggestions. By the same token, when they do their annual exercises, you could send people to assist them and serve as evaluators and learn from them by evaluating what they're doing, bringing back the best practices. Again, the county's got good people, train them, exercise, coordinate and cooperate with all of the towns, provide an adequate staff and a budget, and prepare now for the next disaster. That's all that I've got, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone has got.
I'm going to open it up in a few minutes. Could you put the lights back on?
Yep.
Where's my sunglasses?
Okay. With the other study, we started with John, but this time, Steve, we're going to start with you. Any questions that you all have for Mr. Williams?
So just kind of curious, because that area has been our EOC for a long time, and it looked big enough until everybody got in there. So that's something we got to think about. You're talking about pre-stocking things, Lee. I mean, give me an idea. What size are we talking about of a building? I mean, that's something we got to start brainstorming. And it doesn't have to really be in the center of the county, I guess. It could be.
It doesn't have to be in the center of the county. You need to have a building, hopefully, that's going to be storm worthy. Not all EOCs
Right.
can withstand a tornado. So, you know, ideally it should withstand that, but that's probably not going to be practical.
Gotcha.
I would say your EOC is probably half the size of what the minimum
That's what I needed.
that it could be.
Okay.
Should be. It needs generator
Right.
improvement. We couldn't run the heat pump, if I remember right. We had
Exactly
put
right.
in electrical, portable electrical heaters under everybody's desk, which is not the fire-safe thing to do.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, it's something I'm kind of brainstorming with you. You know, I'm just trying to think.
Lee, we were with our telephone service as well.
Yeah,
Telephones
in the EOC.
and computer, yes, in the EOC.
And that's something you've got available to you if you know to ask for it. The state has got 5 communication caches located throughout the state. They can come in and set up a portable telephone system for you to use if you lose your system.
I got you. Okay.
But that's the type of thing that you're probably not going to be familiar with unless you're participating in some of these organizations, Central Virginia Emergency Management Alliance, working with them so that you know what is available.
Gotcha.
Virginia Emergency Management Association, they have an annual conference each year. In addition to that, they've got, in each of the 7 regions, they have regional workshops. That's how you learn what's available in the rest of the state.
Gotcha. Okay.
Does
Lynn?
that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I'm just trying to get my brain working there.
Okay.
You put it in gear. Thank you, Lee.
Lynn?
Lee, thank you for this. We've got a lot to do, and you mentioned joint efforts with other locales, and I don't know if you can answer this. If you could think of one locale right now, or municipality after which we should model ourselves. far as emergency operations? Can you think of one that we might?
Of similar size,
Yes.
don't have the population of Dinwiddie, but Dinwiddie's got a very good model. They've got a good setup as far as what you may want to consider from the Virginia Fire Board report, as well as this report. If you take the combination of the two reports, and they have already implemented a lot of that.
Gotcha.
Good, thank you.
Similar county population-wise that is progressive but does not have a lot of resources, probably medium.
Really?
Yeah, that, and Amelia, well, that was the guy that their emergency coordinator taught us that class that I said, yeah, Kent, yeah. Gotcha.
No, I just want to thank Lee for everything that you did, helped us during that time. It was something new to us, so we really appreciate it. We appreciate all the staff and Miss Bernetta S. Watkins from social services
And the mayor.
and the mayor,
Crew, yes,
and everyone else that helped. We really appreciate that.
yeah.
Glad to do it.
Yes, sir.
I'm in Nottaway County now, but still paying taxes and still come back here real often, and glad to help out.
Well, Mr. Williams, I thanked you earlier, and, you know, as all the staff here and the rest of the staff, they done a very commendable job. There was a couple of things, and I'd like to reiterate what Ms. Shelton said. We do have a lot of work to do, which includes upgrades to the complex and planning. We still have hurricane season and tornado season that we're looking forward to, of course. The drills that you spoke about, I understand we got to get the plans in place and stuff like that. One of the things would be how often, and what Steve was talking about, Mr. Ken Emerson, we took some courses with him, and during that time frame, I mentioned to him about events, like the Blackstone held a 4th of July fireworks show, and those type of events, I was thinking of possibly targeting them to run ICS training during those events. And how do you feel about that?
I agree 100%. I retired from Chesterfield Fire and EMS. Excuse me. Retired from Chesterfield Fire and EMS. The incident management team concept in Central Virginia, I was one of the originators for that. Probably in 2009, we got it up and running. Started working on it right after Katrina and Tropical Storm Gaston. That was a significant event for Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield, and none of the three localities were prepared to handle it. I was put in charge of a committee to look at what we were doing in Chesterfield County, come up with recommendations for Chesterfield. And one of those recommendations, in addition to the 96, 72, 48, 24-hour advanced steps, was to form an incident management team. I was the original program manager for the Central Virginia Incident Management Team, and that's the way that we started training our people, was in New Kent County, it's not called the Camptown races anymore. But at any rate, the races that they had down at the racetrack down there. Significant event, overpowered New Kent County, but we went in and helped them plan for that. Before the event, and then during the event, and then following up. In addition to that, 4th of July event, say in Chesterfield County, the incident management team for Chesterfield County will plan for that and use that as a training scenario to teach people how to operate in a crisis situation, develop contingency plans. If you've got a 4th of July event and you have a aircraft go down close by, if you have an explosion where they're setting off the fireworks, if you have something from a terrorist standpoint come through, develop contingency plans for those types of things. The other things that we've used the Richmond 10K Marathon, UCROPS Marathon as a training event. The City of Richmond has a lot of those types of events. And that's the way that we started our original training. What that's developed to is not only working in the Central Virginia region, the Richmond Metro region, but we've got teams from the 4 regions that I mentioned, National Capital, Hampton Roads, Central Virginia, and Southwest Virginia, that all work together and train on the same types of classes. We meet virtually once a month, in person every 3 months prior to COVID, as far as the program management is concerned, and we operate as one team when we go out of state. So we've been to Texas, been to Florida a number of times, Maryland a number of times, North Carolina a number of times. They're the primary places that we've been to out of state, and we've developed a good reputation to the point where we get name requested to come in, and it's not through a strict EMAC low bid type of situation. But we in Virginia are name requested now to go to other states. So, but all of us got our start doing exactly what you're speaking of.
Right, because we don't have a lot of events in Nottoway, but every once in a while, like Crew has their homecoming, and then we have a Christmas parade or something like that. So all those type of events. And that telephone cache that you were speaking of, there's one in Lunenburg, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking about that. And the EOC that you touched on, Steve, I'm sure that, Mr. Vaughn, that's one of your big things too,
one of
about
my
getting
goals is
a new
the
complex. And I was thinking about actually having the EOC built onto the Sheriff's Department, where it's an outside entry point, so you don't have to go through the Sheriff's office, but yet the Sheriff has access to that to double as a conference room as well. And then if something happens, they're right there. You got the generators there. It just kind of makes sense. And I think as long as it's built correctly and doesn't create any type of confusion in an emergency situation, that I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but I'm sure the sheriff may want some input on that as well, because
Well, he'll have some input.
It's got to be built correctly,
Yeah.
and it's got to keep the sheriff's needs in mind as well as the county EOC's.
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you.
Well, that, we got to have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. We're not going to get that built before hurricane season.
Well, it's healed. It's healed.
That's what I'm getting at, right.
We got to start having some meetings.
Right.
Okay.
Make
Mr.
plans.
Williams, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a couple of observations?
Please.
Ask Mr. Williams a question. Okay. Just for those of you in attendance, the county, we've seen this after action report. We've had it for quite some time. And the county is already taking action to correct some of the deficiencies. The website is being upgraded. It'll be an interactive website which we will have, our staff will have, and be trained in updating on the fly. So we won't have to worry about a third-party vendor. Training needs. We're going through a training needs assessment right now of all internal staff, and we had plugged in some of the emergency management courses as part of training, which is required for staff, along with their particular areas of expertise. That'll be completed soon, and we'll begin exercising our efforts to get staff to that training and involved in that training. I've met with the Region 1 VDEM staff about updating the plan, and they're aware of our need to update the plan. They've offered what assistance they can, but it looks like a lot of it's going to fall on our shoulders. And so the board has reacted to that and indicated that originally that we needed they felt that the county needed a 50% half-time coordinator for EMS, emergency management. That's been updated to 100% position. The question I have for you though, oh, and IT is being upgraded as well. We found that we have some real weaknesses in IT, along with a lot of other things. The question I have for you, and you and I discussed it a little bit, is within the fire EMS report, we have a recommendation for a full-time fire EMS coordinator. In the after-action report, emergency management coordinator. The board has the or the position description for the full-time emergency management coordinator, but recognizes that there are some overlap functions between the two reports. What is your suggestion, having been in the field before, about how that can fit together, and what assistance that emergency management can provide us in conjunction with combining those functions, or would you even do that?
The emergency management coordinator is required in Virginia code that every county has got to have one.
Right.
So the county can staff that the way that they seem appropriate. Mr. Vaughn's county emergency management coordinator, that is the chairman of the board every year, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so that's the way that that operates. You're meeting the intent of the code by doing that. You can also, if you have a career staff that is capable of doing that, that emergency management coordinator can be the county administrator, it can be the fire chief, it can be an emergency manager, depending on whether emergency management is set up as a separate department or whether it is underneath either the fire department or the police department. Various counties in the state of Virginia are set up in different ways. And Rico, for example, has emergency management as their own department. So you've got law enforcement, fire and EMS, and emergency management. All of those make up public safety.
Mm-hmm.
Chesterfield County, the county administrator, unless this has changed, the county administrator's emergency management coordinator. The deputy is the fire chief, which means the fire chief is the one that's going to be doing all the work. In order for the fire chief to be able to do that, they have staff, and that person is called the assistant emergency management coordinator. The more people you got, the person at the bottom is the one that does the work. The people at the top have the title. They've got the legal responsibility. Small locality, such as Nottoway County, real often, fire and EMS starts off as either being a fire and EMS coordinator or a fire marshal. Fire marshal real often starts off to address fire code deficiencies countywide, and then that will morph into a fire chief's job. By the same token, the emergency services coordinator or the fire and EMS coordinator real often is the position that starts with, especially in a county such as Nottoway, where you've got 3 separate fire departments as well as separate rescue squad that are used to operating independently. They're gonna probably accept a coordinator's job title much more easily than they would accept a county fire chief.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, bottom line, that's political reality.
So taking the recommendations from both reports and blending functions together?
That is possible, and a number of small counties do have emergency management and emergency services written into the job description, have one person. But if you do that, you're not going to have as strong an influence over fire and EMS.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could follow up on one point of the proactiveness we've taken. Now, when the governor declares a state of emergency, we do too. And I want to thank the chairman and Mr. Ansavino when that remnants of that tropical storm came through here, we were ready. The updates that Mr. Ansvino's office was putting out, we were ready if something had to be declared. As best we could be. Of course,
Yeah,
we
as
don't
best
have
we
all the-
could be.
as best we could be. And again, thank you, Mr. Ansvino, for your diligence on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anyone else?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, thank you so much, and you have been a big help to us.
Glad to do it.
And we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Also, our staff has been great. And they were great during the crisis, as well as some people who were not on our staff. But thank you all very much. Mrs. Bernetta S. Walker, she's very good. Okay, thank you so much.
We owe a lunch or dinner to some people.
Yes, yeah.
We definitely do.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have another report that we have to do. Mr.
Yes, we have representatives here
Thank
this
you.
evening from River Street Networks who are going to discuss their approach to providing a significant level of broadband services to Nottoway County citizens using grant funds and what's available in the field already. I've met with them. They are working with a number of counties already, rural counties in the state, and they wanted to make. I felt that we were due a presentation because broadband is a high priority of the Board of Supervisors. What I've provided you is a PowerPoint which comes from the Department of Housing and Community Development. It's a long one, and it's about broadband funding, and it's about the grant application process. But Lon Welchel and Greg Coltrane are both here this evening. They have a PowerPoint as well, are going to set up, and we'll get on with their presentation if that's the pleasure of the board.
Yes.
Yes.
Don't mind the awkward silence. We're just
Take a
watching
quick break.
everything you
It'll
do.
take them a couple minutes.
If you all wish to take a break, just, we'll take a break
Yes,
for a
that's
few
Mr.
minutes.
Williams. If we need to, we will.
You all, Steve, you want to take a walk? Thing is powerful. It's small, but it's powerful.
Katie, what paper are you reporting over there?
You'll know we do it right if it works.
I'm anxious, brother, I'm anxious. I don't think so. Let me back. Mr. Hey, he wanted to know if he could take his one picture down temporarily.
Take what down?
That one picture.
Oh.
I don't think it offend anybody, but I don't know. Ask.
How you doing?
I don't think I would. Yeah.
Hey, I got, you want to set it on this, if that'll help any at all? All right, if you need it, let me know.
I'm not gonna have the judge mad at me.
The thing fall and break.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I'm not going to take it to full presentation mode because it'll fill the wall too big, and then I'm afraid it'll look distracting. So, well, thank you all. I appreciate you inviting us here tonight. We met with the county administrator last Monday, and because of the urgency that we're all feeling for broadband and the approaching body program grant window cycle, he felt it was really important that we get right on in here to meet with you guys. So thank you again for allowing us to come. Again, my name is Greg Coltrane, and I'm Vice President of Business Development for River Street Networks. And Lon Welcher is here with me today. He is a Business Development Manager on our Business Development team. And so the reason that I'm here tonight is to talk with you a little bit about who we are and what our direction is and how that impacts Nottoway County. Wilkes Telephone Membership Corporation is the parent company of River Street Networks. It's a member-owned broadband cooperative. It was established in 1951. It's located in Wilkes County, North Carolina, primarily to serve what we call the gateway to the mountains. If you've ever driven up to Boone, North Carolina, or you would probably have driven across and partly down into Boone, you would probably have gone through some of our cooperative footprint. And as you may understand already, telephone cooperatives were formed many, many years ago through the Rural Electrification Act program and USDA money to fill in pocket communities of the country that didn't have reliable telephone service. And we've been sitting in locations all across the country, not just our co-op, but many co-ops serving rural constituents that would not have had a likely telephone service if that network hadn't been built using federal dollars, okay? We have approximately 30,000 accounts. 23,000 of those are in North Carolina, 7,000 are in Virginia. We're over 173 million in assets with 60 million in annual revenue, and we have about 220 employees between North Carolina and Virginia. So River Street Networks is a wholly owned for-profit subsidiary of Wilkes. We serve primarily North Carolina and Virginia. We have a little bit of fringe in South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. And our sole focus is to take the model that was created 70-some years ago and serve unserved and underserved areas that now lack reliable high-speed broadband internet service. Now, we'll tell you, as a wholly owned for-profit subsidiary, we use the same cooperative mentality in all of the areas where we build. So when we build to those areas, because this for-profit entity is owned by a cooperative, we do not have shareholders. So the money that's made in a particular area is dumped back organically into that area to help grow the network. And I think, I forgot one stitch.
Make you want to pull.
Yeah, just look in my front small zipper and grab that black block and power cord. And if you'll hook that up, I'll just carry on. It's going, without power, it wants to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So this is a map that kind of shows you the footprints where we have existing networks and where we're planning to build networks. The dark green areas, right here is Wilkes County, where our corporate headquarters is located. In 2018, we pulled off what we think was maybe one of the first successful mergers between two cooperatives. I was the CEO of Tri-County Broadband, a cooperative on the eastern part of North Carolina, and we merged these two co-ops together. We acquired some small independent copper-based phone companies, and after we got those networks, we started working to convert them to fiber. We have since acquired some wireless companies. We built wireless networks just across the border into North Carolina in Person County. We have a wireless network down here in south central North Carolina. And then Lon came to us through an acquisition of his company, of which he was the CEO of SCS Broadband, doing wireless in parts of Virginia. Did you want power?
Need a plug, because there's no.
No, there's another extension cord in the top of my bag. We can run it from that behind that chair over there. So let me tell you that the orange areas, We received Connect America Fund, which is an auction I'll talk to you about in a little bit, to build fiber optic networks in a good portion of South Central Virginia. These areas here kind of make up Pennsylvania County, across through Halifax, Charlotte, Lunenburg, and right in here into Nottoway, into your area, Brunswick. So it was a very large area that we have been focusing on building, and we are layering on the financials to pay to help build these networks. And I'll talk to you about that in just a second. So one of the things that we're really thankful for is that our cooperative and our company, River Street Network, since 2010, has applied for and successfully won a total of 32 grants or loan awards. And the total combined consolidated amount for those 32 grants or loans is $205 million. And we're working on, some of those projects have been completed, some of those are getting ready to crank up, and some are being planned out for the future. And this has been a combination of grants, match, and loan. So we really think probably with the Connect America Fund, we understood that we were 1/4 of the national budget for the Connect America Fund in the amount of money that we were awarded. And so there is a general consensus that TMCs and EMCs, who are co-ops who have been building networks for rural people for a long time, could fit the best model based on the fact that they reinvest the monies right back into the community. I'll give you a couple of helpful terms that we might discuss today. Reverse auction is where companies bid for support against each other for who will do it for the least amount of that support. And each round that passes, the support reduces until one company falls out of the auction. The FCC Connect America Fund, or we refer to it as the CAF2 auction, is a reverse auction, and it was held by the FCC. It's a federal funding mechanism. The FCC later changed the program with a new name, and they called it the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, and they created a round one auction. The round one auction was for $16.4 billion nationwide. By the time the auction settled out, they had awarded between $8 and $9 billion nationwide. The remaining of the money that would make the delta to 16.4 is being rolled into the round two auction, which hasn't been announced as to when that auction will occur, but that auction is supposed to cover areas that were left out of the previous funding rounds. There is also a push to redesign the maps, the federal maps that are being used to fund areas for broadband. There's a weakness in there, and if we get a moment, I'll tell you that in just a second. Fiber to the home, we refer to as FTTH, and that's a high-speed internet delivery over fiber optic cable right to your home. It creates an interstate right to your home. Broadband, the FCC currently defines broadband as 25 meg down and 3 meg up. So in our industry, you'll hear people refer to 25 and 3, 50 and 5, 100 by 20, or 100 by 100. All those are the amounts of speeds that consumers can receive down versus what they can get back up to the internet. If someone is delivering a 25 and 3 service, that is a asymmetrical service where you're getting faster one way versus slower the other. If you're getting the equal amount of speed, that's considered a symmetrical connection. That's one we ought to probably add to our definitions. Unserved areas, the FCC says is anything that's less than 25 and 3. So you probably can already look at your county and recognize in your mind probably some pocket communities here that people can't receive a minimum 25 and 3. Census block groups, the minimum geographic area eligible to bid in the FCC auction and consists of census blocks. So they take all the blocks and put them together in a biddable group. The same thing for blocks, locations, a home or business, and then the body program is the state funding mechanism, and you may have heard the announcement recently by the governor. There was $50 million in the fund for this year. They just injected it to $700 million. This is really good for the citizens of Virginia. So River Street is looking to leverage matching funds that we've already received on a federal auction to cover the budget shortfalls with those state and federal grants and expand the current network sooner to customers than later. These fundable areas are based on a 6-year build timeline, but we only receive funding over a 10-year build timeline or 10-year recovery timeline. So therefore, we have to upfront all the cost on the front end to get customers connected. What we're proposing to you today is that Nottoway County inject some funds, allow us to take the funds they inject and match it with a state body grant application that we're doing regionally for a large swath of counties, and then combine Nottoway into our plans to project broadband faster in Nottoway than later for the areas that we've been awarded. And I'll show you some maps to kind of put that in perspective. So Nottoway County's RDOF Round 1 auction, Fiber to the Home Broadband Connectivity Project, is to serve unserved areas, 1,089 locations to be served within 6 years. Now there's 644 SpaceX locations that are included in that 1,089. So what the state body program has said is that SpaceX, which is Starlink's broadband solution, has not officially been vetted, nor has it been proven as to exactly how well the technology will work. And so while they have funding available, they're going to go ahead and fund areas that received SpaceX, where SpaceX received Rural Digital Opportunity Fund money. They're going to allow those areas to still be applied for through the state body program. So we're combining those in an effort to create a larger build project for greater stability of the project. 888,640 total funds will be received through the auction to River Street over 10 years. That average funding is $816 per location. Now it typically costs us about $5,500 per location just to pass it. River Street pays approximately another $2,000 to $2,500, another $2,000 to $2,500 to physically connect the customer from what we call the mailbox to the house. So it's very expensive to bring people fiber optic. But once they have fiber optic, the technology will expand and grow for future generations. And for your county, it is an economic stronghold, to say the least. One of the examples that I can give you about broadband service today is that 25/3, which the FCC currently calls the standard for broadband, if you go and buy a 4K television from your local Walmart or a big box store and you put that in your house and you try to stream video, that 4K TV is going to swell and use 100% of that 25/3 service just for that one television. So our desire for the use of data has grown every year since we had dial-up internet service. You saw us go from dial-up to this technology, to this technology, to this technology. And the FCC has provided funding for I guess T1 circuits, then they started providing funding to get people to 4-in-1, and then they started providing money to get people to 10-in-1 and to 25/3, and there's just been this chronic Band-Aid placed on broadband. It is River Street's opinion that while this funding is available, we need to go all in, we need to put fiber to people and cut out the needless spending that we're going to have to do years from now by going ahead and giving people connectivity to a network that they can have forever, pretty much. The project budget shortfall for us, because of those calculations, it's going to cost us $7,078,500 to build this project. The money that we've received through the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund leaves us with a shortfall of $6,189,860. Now, we're not asking Nottoway County to fund all of that, and I've got a slide that will show you what that kind of looks like. But before we get into that, I'll show you the areas. The areas that we have been funded for Nottoway County to build fiber is this pocket in the upper right-hand corner. Now, we wanted for geographical understanding of our total project, we wanted to show you that we've also received funding in Dinwiddie County to build their area, and some down here in Brunswick, as well as a little bit in Amelia County. And so this build is a part of a greater regional build, which can expand over time and take in more locations within the white areas that you see where there is an orange. So when you look at the funding area for RDOF, it's really 445 passings. With the SpaceX of 644, it takes us to 1,089 locations to be served. And I just broke down, again, Lon and I have broken down the funding here to show you how that looks. Pretty much what you saw in the previous slide. Now I want to share with you a model that we found some success with just a few years ago, and it's underway now. King and Queen County, which is just east of us here, northeast of us here, when River Street was going into the CAF auction to win CAF, we were also looking at the acquisition of Gamewood Technologies, which operates on the in Danville fiber network in the city of Danville. And Rob Taylor, who is also on our team, was the CEO of that company. And Gamewood Technologies had actually built a fixed wireless network that the county of King and Queen owned to put in 4 wireless towers strategically placed across their county for emergency services use, but also for delivery of broadband. That technology had reached end of life at that time, and the county was talking with Gamewood about upgrading that network, and we were acquiring Gamewood. So we started talking to the county about what the cost would be to upgrade the wireless network. At the same time, we won through the FCC's Connect America Fund $5 million to build in their county. So our engineering department diligently went to work to determine what the total build cost would be for King and Queen County. And that came to the tune of about $18 million. So we sat down with King and Queen County and we said, all right, we've got $5 million. The state body program they've got a grant program, and we'll go gangbusters all in to the body program, and we'll work with them on an application and we'll submit it. But if we're not successful, will the county consider funding a backstop to cover that so that we can move forward? And so that project broke down financially like what you see there. And we were actually successful in the body program. We received $3.5 million through the body program. And there is still an application that we have in with body that could actually assist with some more of this funding once everything gets settled. But the main thing I want you to focus on here is how we used local dollars, state dollars, private sector River Street dollars, and federal dollars all together. And we have now launched a build process, and we are going to build King and Queen County. It's already underway. We've already passed close to 200 customers with fiber, but they will be 100% fiber to the entire county when the project's complete. So what we would like for you to focus on is the fact that we've got $888,000 coming in over 10 years through this program, and we would like for the county to consider a contribution of $1 million to allow us to package that in a body application for another $4 million, and then River Street will match with another $1 million to make the budget for this entire project. No questions so far?
You mentioned that 10-year period. Let me get it straight now. With that $1 million that you're asking for the county, that's not a 10-year period. That's a one shot.
That's a one-time.
Okay.
And that could be through American Resource, the American Recovery Program funds, which we've already drawn down.
John, yeah, I got you. Okay. Thank you, John.
That grant deadline, is that September?
It is. And we are talking with several counties right now. We have several who have already committed, and we have a few that we still have board meetings to meet with. And we'll be doing that. There was a couple of ways you could do this, but the way that the body program has encouraged us to do this is to work with the PUC FCC to combine these together in a larger application and send that up. Now, we did a sanity
Put a
check
few more slides. We can put them on if you
DHCD
want.
about our project in advance and shared with them our financials for how we wanted to place this application, and they encouraged us to move forward.
All right, and you're saying it's 6 years to complete for the roughly 1,100?
Yes, sir.
Do you, this might be completely premature here, but do you have any expectations on if this could be broadened with matching funds from the county and a time frame to complete the entire county here?
It could be broadened. Right now, our initial push is to get through this early application window. And then there will be another round. They will keep having more rounds of this, most likely. What I wanted to mention to you is the fact that the maps that are currently being used to determine what areas are fundable are very, very much skewed. And we participated, River Street participated with 8 of the other larger for-profit companies in Virginia in a study that was put on by CostQuest and NTIA. And basically the study was to say, okay, if we take in all the information we can from these providers, are the areas that we're funding in fact accurate and correct? So being the fact that they use census blocks, and those census blocks are just really geographic lines drawn, if a person in that census block that may be closer to a city center or a town center or a piece of electronics that can provide reliable broadband, if one person is in that census block, then under the current mapping structure, all people in that census block were considered unfundable because of the way the structure had been created. So because of the research that was done through CostQuest and NTIA, they went and basically testified before the FCC and shared this knowledge. And the FCC is redefining the mapping process. It's a fabric method where they use a lot of things to come together. The new maps, we don't know when they'll be out, but a lot of all future funding is going to be based on these new maps.
And when you say 25.3, that's like the minimum broadband, correct?
That's currently FCC's definition of the minimum.
And y'all are talking about installing,
We're going to put fiber in. Our minimum is 100 by 100 of the fiber.
that's what I want to hear.
But our network will serve those customers a gig of service if they need it. And then its future growth, it's designed, the fiber is designed in such a way that 10 years from now or 5 years from now or whenever the demand is there, we just change out the electronics on the ends of the fiber, what's at the customer's house and what's in our central office, and it's expandable to a 10 gig network.
And I did think, one of the last one I have for you was I thought that there was a section in Southwest Virginia as well. I mean, Southwest Nottaway County.
Yes, in South.
That might have been SpaceX,
It
which is
could,
not on the map.
could have been.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. Thank you.
And to answer part of your question too, we do have another county or two that are looking at putting other funds in on top of the RDOF area and asking us to come in and build the entire county in one case.
And see, that's the question I was talking about, I was going to address later on, because we have a pretty robust general fund, and
That's the
if we're looking into
FCC
that, then could
auction-
y'all expand that?
Auction off the
So what we've
areas
done
and
with
they're
the counties that
paying,
are asking us to do
the
that,
FCC's actually paying
they've walked a little
them to
further down the
serve.
road with us, and we would need to do some catch up with
Okay.
you guys. They actually pay for us to do a broadband expansion plan. It's a blueprint. If you're gonna build a house and you wanna know, okay, I might want the living room here, and the kitchen here, and the bathroom here, what's gonna go on the second floor? You wouldn't build a house until you know where it's gonna all be. So we take all of what we can determine from you and from the current maps and from the state maps, and we combine that together and we actually build an engineering blueprint
Okay.
of a full county build. So we put a ring in, and that ring would be the backbone that all traffic travels over, the spokes off of it, and then we connect out to all the homes and businesses in the county.
Gotcha.
And that design says, okay, this is what our price tag is. This is how big the elephant is. We know River Street's getting ready to do this up here, and they've asked us for this. What can we inject to build the rest of it? And that could be done in a phase 2 or phase 3, and then we would go after whatever the current funding mechanisms are that you would qualify for in this county. So let's say, for instance, the FCC comes along in the next year or two, and they raise that bar from 25 and 3 to 100 by 100 or 100 by 20. Then all of a sudden, you've got areas in your county that didn't qualify in previous auctions that are now fundable for funds to build broadband.
Okay.
So there's a lot of opportunities that you can come back and do.
King and
Okay,
Queen
I
did
have-
broadband expansion.
I have another lady. Lynn, you want to ask her?
Go ahead and finish. I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna make the comment, King and Queen did the broadband expansion plan because that was done knowing the cost of all the fiber, all the equipment, full mapping, everything was ready to go. They were able to react to other grants that came up. And over time, the commitment River Street made was to reduce their commitment every time we had an opportunity to bring in more federal or state funding, and we were able to do that for them.
So you see this
Okay.
funds here,
Mm-hmm.
this money right here, because they had already done a broadband expansion plan and we had that, CARES money was given to the Rappahannock Indian tribe, and they reached across to us and said, is there any way you can expedite the bill to make sure that our tribal center and our tribe members get broadband? Can we make that happen faster? And because we already had that plan and that design, we were able to immediately supply them the solution. And they injected money here, which came out of the county's local funds contribution here. And so it was just a quick way to make something happen for some people with funds, and they used CARES dollars for that.
I have someone else who wants to ask something.
Greg, you probably explained this, but if you don't mind clarifying, the funds, so the federal RDOF funds flow in over a period of 10 years. And then the source of the state funds, again, could you clarify that?
That would be the body application through the
Okay.
body state program.
And how does that flow in?
It would be, so in this particular case, for the areas that we showed you on the map, it's paid out as you spend it.
Okay.
And so, and we really kind of like this program because what we look at is we look at the county as our partner. And so the county will win those funds, or if it's done through the PEC, it would come to them. It wouldn't actually come to them until we spend it. So we spend it, we show that we spent it and how much progress has been done, and then it gets reimbursed through them from the state, and then they pay us. So the network is our network. We manage it, we maintain it, we do all the maintenance on the network. But it's a great way to keep accountability for the process. And it's something we've become very comfortable with King and Queen County. So.
Okay, Steve?
No, he brings up King and Queen, and Sharon Alsop, I think her name was, is the King and Queen chairman there, and she did a presentation, Virginia Association of Counties, with this. I had no idea it was your group that did that project, but she is adamant that it was a good project.
You talking about Sharon?
Sharon I had no idea until you brought it up just a few minutes ago. I know, but she went to a VACO conference and gave us a presentation of how it worked, and pretty interesting. But I like, you got to start somewhere, and it's not on the side of the county that I want it to be. I'll be the first to tell you that. But you got to start somewhere, and that's what she mentioned. You got to spark it, and it looks like you've already there with Dinwiddie, so you're just kind of expanding out into that region, and I get it. I understand that.
We have some funding opportunities I just wanted to illustrate for you here. The round 2 of RDOF will be coming, and when that comes, we would obviously, if I had a larger map that showed you where we had our CAF and RDOF areas, you would see that where we won CAF, we tucked into it with qualifying awardable areas for RDOF. So we won this money to build this area. Now we just won this money to build this area, and it filled in the gaps. And so we feel like that will be the same thing again when round 2 comes. And so we want to be prepared and keeping a watchful eye on that program. You got the VADI program that's administered through DHCD. They have potential for other programs to be coming down. The federal government is, as you know, talking a lot about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Currently, we're hearing 65 billion as the broadband segment of infrastructure, with 40 billion of that coming directly to the states. for the states to use for broadband initiatives. So that would probably land in the VODI program. So they're working on how, right now they've got what they've got. What's it gonna be like next year? It'll be the money out of infrastructure if that gets passed. We also understand that the House has just sent an approved bill over to the Senate for another $43 billion. And we don't really know yet what that's gonna look like, but if the Senate approves it, then that $43 billion is also gonna fall somewhere for broadband. So there's gonna be a lot of funding opportunities to come. We would like to just begin to work with Nottaway County on this project and then see what makes sense.
Just to help a little bit with VODI, VODI will only fund the areas that qualify as being underserved and have not been funded by CAP. So they made an exception this year with RDOF because RDOF funding got so low that VODI understood that that's not enough money to go build. So they're allowing that to count at 50% on a scale, and that allows companies like ours to go in and apply for VODI where the RDOF funding is. We cannot apply if it was capped in your county because that's previously funded and they're not recognizing that as a fundable area. However, we have a county, for example, that identified 249 homes that were underserved. VODI helped them do that. So VODI can work with the county and help them identify areas that currently on the map show as being served, but together they can identify these areas that can be funded under the current VATI. So that's an opportunity to go reach areas. Back to what Greg was saying, you have a block that has one home served, and you know the other 100 homes in there don't have service, and you can identify that, and they can qualify for VODI.
Anyone else?
Yeah. How does the governor's announcement factor into, where's that plugged into this equation?
It means a lot to us because this particular multi-county design that we're putting together that we did a litmus test with VODI on, they didn't bat an eye at it, and it was way above the entire state budget. So we knew that they were anticipating that there would be an influx. The states, all 50 states received ARP money, just like every county received ARP money. And so I think the state of Virginia has chosen to use the majority of their surplus ARP funds to inject their VODI program. They're encouraging counties to use their ARP, along with state ARP, private sector funding, other federal funding. They're very specific with us that they don't want us to give up any of the areas that were awarded federal dollars because that's federal money that gets lost on the state. It would go back to the federal government, which means that the VODI program or something else would have to produce money to help fund those areas in the future. So they're very insistent that they want to try to work closely with this to make it happen.
But the governor's announcement last week doesn't factor into the funding plan that you placed up on the screen. Is that
General
correct?
Assembly's got to vote on it in a few weeks.
So
And once they do, then what will happen is they'll go from 50 million that was allocated already
Right.
to 700 million.
I'm just curious as to whether or not that 700 million, which is an additional 650 million,
It's
that's
gonna
not
fund this.
that's not factored into that, right?
Well, when you look at globally, all the 14 counties we're talking to,
Yeah.
it is in a way, because they didn't have enough to cover all our geographic funding needs for all those homes.
So this is contingent upon the General Assembly's action of approving the governor's request, correct?
Very likely, if they only had 50 million, there'd be a lot of projects in the state of Virginia, don't know which ones, that would not be funded.
Okay.
Now there's 700 million, VATI has been talking to companies like ours, and they understand that the need is just under 700 million. They think they can fulfill all the current application requests. And they don't know for sure, so they get them all in, for the 700 million. The good news is, very likely, a lot of projects will be approved, whereas in the past, all projects were not approved.
Right. And when we met a week ago Monday, I understood that there was a good possibility that the southwestern section of the county, you could pick that up at some time, right?
I think that's the SpaceX.
Yes.
Yes, and that can. So to make it a little clearer, maybe I wasn't a little clear earlier, If you are an RDOF winner, like us, they only count the homes or locations at 50% of the scoring. However, if it's a SpaceX, they count it at 100%, as if it had no funding. Even though they have RDOF funding, they're not recognizing the beta, as somebody referred to it, technology as being a good solution. So statewide, they're saying any of the areas that have SpaceX, they're allowing those to be included in the applications at 100%.
Okay.
There's a big incentive to try to find other areas in the counties that can be identified and confirmed to the DHCD that they don't have adequate service, because it brings the numbers up, and we can do it all at one time.
So this 4 million here that we're going to body for would come out of their 700 million budget?
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I had was one more follow-up. It's a two-part question, but I guess maybe kind of a legal question. Well, number one, who's applying for the grant? Would we have to go through our CRC, and then who oversees to make sure the procurement process is legally done?
So a couple of things there. I'll speak to the latter question.
Mhm.
And then I'll let Lon talk to you about who's going to administer the funds. But we just replied to an RFI that Campbell County had. And because of cooperative procurement in the state, your county can now go through that process and use our submission. So we don't have to do that, which won't slow you down.
Okay.
Now, as far as the funding goes, if, do you want to talk about it? If we use Crater to do this, then they would be the ones that receive the money and issue the monies across to River Street to build. So it takes the load off of you guys, but you're going in as the county as a part of Crater submitting the application.
Okay.
Okay, so it'd be Crater as opposed to Commonwealth. Okay,
Yeah.
We talked to them already.
okay,
They're in agreement to help with this process.
good.
What I understand is because Crater does this, they have the means to charge an administration fee to manage it, and you guys wouldn't. So by doing it this way, it takes the burden kind of off of you and lets them take care of it and get the, adequate funding they need to administer it.
They still have to report back to the counties.
Right.
Of course. And then there are milestones that are set in the process, the county's involved with that. So you still have what I think of as the control and oversight, because part of our partnership is the work we do to help identify areas of need. We may say this is a great area, if you say this is a bigger area of need. Having that partnership goes a long way to make sure we're mapping out and doing the best we can with the funds we have at the time. If Crater's involved, all they're doing is taking the management of the funding.
So do we need to look towards Spanberger's office, because they sent that notification out about sending out a letter of endorsement for, like, if Nottoway decided they wanted to?
So I'm going to cover that right here.
Okay.
Which I think I sent you a copy of the draft. If I didn't, I'll resend it to you. The DHCD has a draft.
It's already been,
27th of July.
yeah, it's already been submitted to DHCD.
My man.
He's all over.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
I want to adopt him, but he won't let me.
So just to kind of summarize everything and maybe some next steps is that River Street is requesting Nottoway to give us $1 million of their ARP funds. We're setting that aside for this project. So you're really not giving it to us yet. We're just requesting that you go ahead and isolate those funds and set them aside for this project. And this project will pass 1,089 locations, and county funding is going to help expedite this project completion to 3 years instead of 6 years.
Wow.
So that area in the upper right-hand corner. River Street will pursue all eligible state and federal funding to help complement funding for the project with Nottoway County. So the next time something comes around that makes sense that we need to be jumping all over it, then we'll apply for that to complement the rest of the projects that we may want to do. Approve the shortfall amount to be supplied by the county. So tonight or whenever you guys see fit, the sooner the better, because we've got a very short window of time. We would like for you to approve that $1 million to help with the shortfall. And then the county's already sent a letter of intent to DHCD. 27th. Then the county would work with Virginia, DHCD, and RSN to identify any additional unserved areas, as Lon was talking about earlier. If you can find those and you can show DHCD that they exist, then they will allow them to be added. Now keep in mind, if we add more locations and areas, that changes and shifts our budget,
Sure.
but we will still spread it at the same percentage. So River Street will still do its match, and the county would do its portion, and then it would all settle out under a new budget based on those locations. Work with RSN and the PDC on an MOU to be approved prior to the application. So we have to have an MOU in place that says, we're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, the PDC is gonna do this, it's gonna look like this, and this is what the expected outcome is. And then you would assist us and the PDC on completing the body application. And we would pretty much walk you through that. And then work with RSN and or the PDC on an agreement that would be approved if the body funding is awarded. So once it's awarded, what the body program expects in their follow-up due diligence is a formal agreement that would happen between River Street and the county. And we submit that back up to the body for their required paperwork for the award.
So steps in this process would be for us to select you folks through the piggybacking on Campbell County's agreement, and then committing a little bit over $1 million of ARP funding, and then entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Planning District Commission over in Petersburg. Is there a model agreement that they've prepared? I'm sure they're probably.
We have a draft that we're working with other counties on.
Okay.
What we'd like to do is use the same one so that everybody recognizes it.
Yep. Okay.
We got one that we're working with.
It's like a 4-page document that's, attorneys have put their fingers on and done their thing, so.
Committing those
Where's the
funds.
attorney in the room?
Committing those funds, John, I'm just curious, do we have to do a public hearing for that? Do you know?
We probably do. Where's Katie?
Katie, what do you think?
We're going to need a public, well, we accepted the funds, and did we amend the budget the other night on the public hearing? So we don't have to have a public hearing to allocate the funds, do we? We do not. But we do have to meet the requirements of the American Recovery Act.
Right.
And there is some public involvement required in that, and we need to get going on that because there was another project which came up today, which we might be able to contribute to over at the Regional Juvenile Detention Center, which would lower our contributions to the center over a period of time. So we're beginning to see projects come up, but we do have to meet the requirements of the American Recovery Program. So we will need to begin doing that.
Mr. Chairman, and just to let you know, where I'm at with this, pending all the background requirements, I'm absolutely ready to move forward with it. And if there's any shortfall, I'd be ready to go into the general fund to support it.
Well,
We can't do anything.
I know we're not taking no, I'm just telling you where,
Right. I'm in favor of it.
I'm ready to go.
yeah, and Katie and I also met earlier this week with a financial planning firm which works with local governments, which has prepared a very early analysis of Nottoway County's fund balances and our bond rating or our credit rating and all of those things which we need to bring to the board as well, because you have a lot of projects in the pipeline. You got a $20 million in old dollars courthouse, or not courthouse, but administration building, about $1.5 million animal control facility. We've got equipment that needs to be replaced. And so, as I think it was Senator Dirksen from Indiana said, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, pretty soon it adds up to real money. In a county, it's $100,000 or $1 million, it adds up to real money. You have to maintain a healthy fund balance, but there is money that you can spend. But before we do that, you also need to, and commit to that, you need to understand what the financial plan is that these folks would present. So there's a lot of moving pieces out there and parts which need to come together, but they're all in motion right now.
We have to.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
One question. Okay, we know that we've got the September deadline for the grant application. We need we need to know, because our next board meeting, our full board meeting, we'll need to have a special meeting for the county administrator. Give us a rough window of time when you need to have an answer from us. You said sooner than later.
The sooner is better. You know, what we want to do is know that we can go ahead and draft the MOU. I mean, we have a draft MOU, it's just a matter of us
Right.
plugging in just the details. So we can present that to you for you to start reviewing. It really just comes down to signing that MOU and you allocating in your funds
Mhm.
and holding those to the side. And if we win, then we win. If not, then we would be having a different conversation.
Sure. I would suggest to the board that you can't take a vote tonight,
Right.
but, you know, if there's a consensus of the board, we could begin reviewing the memorandum of understanding at the staff level with the anticipation of, once it's satisfactory, of getting it to the board for formal action with any amendments that may need to be made, so that we don't hold back too long. And you will have a special meeting in the near future for personnel action, probably. So we could add that to the agenda for that particular meeting.
One good thing, if I can say about the MOU is that's all it is. It's just an MOU. The legal agreement would come
Later.
at the award.
Yes.
Correct.
So it gives you the opportunity to feel like this is something that you can navigate through
Right.
without a ton of commitment.
I'm excited. Ain't you excited? Ain't you excited?
Yes.
How do you feel about it? I'm fine with it. I think that,
That's good.
that $2 million, we need to do something with. That goes there.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you.
May I just bring one other thing, one other consideration?
It's like I thought, put the man on the shop.
Like we did with Clean Clean, which we were talking about earlier. The broadband expansion plan may be something to consider. We're not in the business to go and do engineering plans for people. Matter of fact, we don't even charge to cover our true costs to do these. We only offer where we have partnerships. And the reason for that is, back to your question earlier, if you want to build on another part of the county, there's an engineering plan to go do that, and suddenly other funds pop up. Or out of your general funds, you say, we want to go do X, Y, Z. We can actually break it out that way. So that is a consideration. It costs us a lot more, but I think we're
Around
60,000 to do that.
to do that.
And
And it takes about 6 months.
it takes a while to do one. It's not something that can be done overnight. So
Right.
it includes the equipment list, the model numbers. I mean, it's what an engineering company or a fiber company would need to go and start building.
You could take this blueprint and use it with someone other than us.
In some counties, which I think I'm not sure we did this for King and Queen, we've done for others, we did a fiber and a wireless plan. Today, we're not recommending the wireless plan, frankly. We don't think it's the right solution. There's a lot of reasons not to do that. And it obviously costs more to do that. The fiber, based on the Treasury Department's guidelines on some of the funds that are coming out, they're talking 100 over 100 or 100 over 20 speeds. And wireless is not going to get us there. So if that's the trend, and the FCC goes to that, fiber's the solution. So that's a consideration for you, but it's something that takes a lot of time, engineering time.
What I'm hearing you say, though, Lon, is it would be an additional $60,000 to finish out that plan, would take 6 months, and then we would have a plan, the county would have a plan, which you would own it, we'd own it, you'd have the areas of weakness identified and the equipment that needs to go in there, and as funds became available, the county, or maybe you folks on our behalf, could continue to work with us and make sure that they're realized through the grant programs.
We just had that money returned from the school, or we could go into capital outlay.
Okay.
But you
Thank-
guys talk about it.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can exit, y'all can have your conversation.
And we could piggyback that on Campbell County as well, correct? Okay,
It's a statewide clause that,
okay,
I can't remember the number, frankly, that's in the state code.
okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Presentation.
Sorry about the clumsy AV guy over here.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
Okay, the chair will now entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Yeah.
Did you make
It's
it?
been
Yes,
moved-
ma'am.
Second.
moved and seconded, and we adjourn. Those in favor, let it be known by usual sign.
Aye.
Yeah. Ayes have it. In polling, it seems like everybody is in.